it's still a very difficult war for either side to advance. There's so many mines, there are so many drones, there are so many um, rounds of artillery ammunition. But if the West doesn't keep supplying Ukraine with ammunition, it is eventually going to run out, and it simply won't be able to hold the Russians.
First of all, Maxim, and most importantly, how's the war actually going?
Well, I think the war is at a critical point at the moment for Ukraine. They spent a lot of ammunition on trying to regain territory during the summer counteroffensive, and I don't think they expected then to have further support from the West held up, particularly by Republicans in the U.S. Congress. So now, as they're on the back foot, they're defending at Avdiivka, where the Russians are trying to cut off Ukrainian troops in that town. And when I was there, I spoke to an elite brigade who'd been taken from the southern counteroffensive and put into Avdiivka to try and hold the line against the Russians. And one of their mortar units had only kind of 15 shells for 3 days. So they're in a really dire situation and in a real need of support, which is why Zelensky's gone to Washington to try and make his case this week.
And I understand that the Russians are actually making some progress.
So the Russians, they may be over-egging the claim that they've made. They said that they've made some progress around the village in the south. It's still a very difficult war for either side to advance. There's so many mines, there are so many drones, there are so many rounds of artillery ammunition. But if the West doesn't keep supplying Ukraine with ammunition, it is eventually going to run out, and it simply won't be able to hold the Russians. So those kind of incremental advantages could quickly become a breakthrough if the West doesn't supply ammunition.
And how much is this the result of what's happening with Israel and Gaza and the huge support that America has given Israel? Is that having an impact on what's happening in Ukraine, or is it down to the fact that the aid package has stalled in the U.S. Congress due to political rows? I mean, are they impacting on each other?
The impact on each other, I think the US diverted 155 millimeter shells to Israel, which seems like a strange choice for the Ukrainians because they're fighting a conventional war where artillery battles are key, and Israel is essentially fighting a complicated counter-terror insurgency. So I think decisions have been made that have complicated the Ukrainian situation, but also what the Republicans are doing in Congress by tying the delivery of Ukraine aid to funding for US border defenses and political point scoring against the Biden administration ahead of elections next year is really having a huge impact on the battlefield. And it's quite short-sighted by the Republicans not to see. I mean, imagine we saw during the fall of Afghanistan, American Humvees, American Special Forces equipment in the hands of Taliban militants. And imagine having Patriot missile batteries and sophisticated equipment like that. Anti-air defenses fall into the hands of the Russians because the Ukrainians aren't able to defend themselves with ammunition.
And just finally, speaking of Russia, I wonder what the word is on what's happened to Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader who's basically disappeared from prison where he was serving his sentence. He was due to appear in court yesterday, I think, and his whereabouts are currently unknown.
Yes, he's been missing for a week, and it's obviously a very alarming situation. This is a man who the Kremlin has tried to poison before. His treatment in prison has been very poor, and people have been concerned and expressed concern for his welfare in prison. His health has been deteriorating. And now
can I just ask you, Maxim, he's completely disappeared. Why now? I mean, obviously he's been in prison for quite some time, and if Putin or the Russians wanted to dispose of him, they will have had ample opportunity. Is there anything specific about this period that would make that, sadly, more likely?
Right, so President Putin has just announced the launch of his re-election campaign for next year, when the elections in Russia are due in March. And Navalny had launched a campaign saying, vote for anyone except Putin. So wherever you have the opportunity to go out and vote, but vote against Putin, just register a protest vote. I mean, he expects the election results to be predetermined as always, but they can still have a kind of visible display of defiance against Putin. So this campaign is intended to wound Putin, and Putin has obviously responded by trying to take Navalny out of the equation, at least temporarily for the launch of the campaign, if not in the longer term.